Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Ambassador Atkan-Bayer. That was beautiful. We are now going to begin our main keynote talk. The subject, the title, as you can see, is The Art of Sounding, Techniques, Terminologies, and Meanings of Mongolian Long Song. And we have three scholars who will approach the topic from three different perspectives: an ethnomusicologist, a long song singer, and a linguist. I would like you all three to come and sit on the stage if you could. So our ethnomusicologist is SUNMIN YOON. She is adjunct assistant professor of world music at the University of Delaware, Newark. She is an ethnomusicologist specializing in Mongolian folk songs, and her research focuses on the intersection of the genre's preservation and globalized cultural heritage. She has a PhD in ethnomusicology from University of Maryland, College Park, an MA in ethnomusicology from Kent State University, and an MA in musicology from Kyungwon University in South Korea. Mr. BATBOLD is a long song singer on the faculty of the School of Music Arts, Mongolian National University of Art and Culture, Ulaanbaatar. He teaches long song technique and is head of the Mongolian Long Song Association. In addition, he is a Mongolian wrestling coach and a Mongolian wrestling title singer. He received the title of Honored Artist of Mongolia from the government of Mongolia. Welcome, Mr. BATBOLD. SARUUL-ERDENE MYAGMAR needs no introduction. He is librarian, Mongolian specialist here at the Library of Congress in the Asian and Middle Eastern Division. He has previously been a Mongolian language instructor at the Foreign Service Institute, U.S. Department of State, visiting scholar at Indiana University, and lecturer at the Mongolian State University of Education. He has a PhD in linguistics from Mongolian State Pedagogical University in Ulaanbaatar. So please welcome our speakers today.
Thank you, Susan, for a wonderful introduction. Wow, we have a lot of audience today. I'm an ethnomusicologist. I actually studied Ortindo past almost 10 years, in and out, and meeting a lot of singers. I'm not a Mongolian, I'm not American, but I was really drawn into this sound of long song when I get to Mongolia very first time. And anyone who hear the sound of song is never gonna forget the sound. And I decided back in 2006, why? What element of this music that has been survived for a long time in Mongolia, what aspect of this really make people remember this song? So that was only my question to go into Mongolia. So I've been questioning myself, I've been questioning a lot of singers, and I'm still in searching. But in the process of the searching, I found the way of that they're making the sound out of their lyrics is the one of the art of this genre. And that way of making the sound really stands out this genre in there. Our ambassador, Yoon, talked about everything about Ortindo, so I don't think we really need a lot of introduction. But so people often talk about what is Ortindo. It has been researched for several other scholars, and there are a couple of literature about it. And one of the research from Japan talked about, what is Ortindo. And he talked about really these melismatic elements, which is really the ornaments really makes really special of this genre. And how they make these ornaments is really kind of expanding and sometimes contracting of the lyrics and vowels and consonants in the lyrics. And in a free rhythm, if you are not really a music person, you might wonder, what is free rhythm? Maybe there is no rhythm. There is a certain way of feeling the lyrics and phrase, musical phrase, and we call it rhythm. We always really used to, in Western world, we're used to counting what it is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. Sometimes we call it irregular. But in Mongolia, everything is free. So they put this sound on very free spirit and free sound. So we often call it free rhythm. Doesn't mean that really there isn't any rhythm, but there is, but it's very free. So they put these sound on rhythm and then drawing the sound as they want to make. So these kind of thing really requires tremendous training. I'm not a practitioner. We have a tremendous great singer in here, we're gonna listen to it. But it really requires a lot of training, but that training isn't really coming from the conservatory. It's really coming from the way of life that they're living together with the livestock, listening to the livestock, listening to the wind, listening to the landscape. And then they make the melodic line out of that environment. So with that training, with that background, and training from their elders, learning from what really Mongols' customs are, they learn these long songs. So with those background, one of the scholar named Theodore Levin, who is actually Tuvan scholar, music scholar, talked about this long song as people often listen this as melodic music. But it is melodic. You're gonna listen to that, and it is melodic. But in melodic line, you kind of changing, manipulating something different. Then what is something different? That's timbre. We call it in music. Timbre, tone quality. So you change but sounds different. So they change this timbre. So it's not just melodic, but within the melodic line, they change this timbre. And that really brought by this Levin. And I fully agree. And it's right there. And that's what really makes really long song special as well. But he talked about the background, but the content, it's really hard to understand what they're singing, even if you're Mongolians. It's really hard to understand because it's elongated, and sometimes the word itself is really kind of old word too, right? So it's not easy, but in terms of content, they're talking about, religious and philosophical, and also kind of ceremonial, and sometimes talking about loved one. One of the songs I think he's gonna show today is one of the songs that sung always right after wedding. You go outside and then say, you're gonna move away. They don't know, they are nomads. They don't know when they're gonna meet again, right? So they're saying like, the foreign land is gonna be really, really hard. So just wait and just take time and just live with it, right? And then they just sing that as a long song. So those are the contents of the long songs. And they're imitating animals, and they're talking about their birthplace. So that's pretty much in long song. So what we're gonna do today, I'm not gonna talk about as a really keynote speaker. We have 3 people, and I'm still in the part of learning what these long song techniques are. And we're gonna work together today, not as really just what it is defining, but we're gonna talk together and trying to figure out what it is from linguist and from practitioner and from me as a music scholar that about these techniques that has been always in Mongolian long song today. So we have several terms that we're gonna go through, but before that, we're gonna actually listen to the long song because we have to know what it is in terms of sound, right? So we'll have Mr. BATBOLD coming in and singing.
Okay, so that was Ortindo, and now we'll talk about this ornaments and techniques. It's very interesting from both from the linguistic side and from musical side, and we were very happy to work together. And he was in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. She was in Delaware. I was here, and then it was like very interesting project from 3 places we are talking. Okay, and, let's do this and that, and so for example, very first one, bunjgun, bunjgun. It's very interesting word in the Mongolian language. See, it's in the Civil's dictionary, it says the movement of a small round item. And then Bollerton says it's for something round to shake or sway. It's very difficult to translate as a one word, this word bunjugnuh. Should be small, also round, and also moving very quickly. So all the vowels and the consonants here has the meaning. For example, there is so many such roots in the Mongolian language, like bunj, bund, or bond, or band. So the difference between bunj, bond, bund, bond, band is all be in there makes it round. Then how round? A small round or bigger round? That the vowel makes it. So bunj is always the smallest one. Bond or a little bit bigger, and then band, making it much bigger. So bunjignuh is the small one, and then those suffixes are different too. Bunji, this a, e. That suffix makes it move, but it's very slowly, or being still. Bunji. This small round thing is being still, or if it moves, slowly. Bondah or bandah. It moves or being still. Gana, gine, guno. That suffix makes them move very quickly. Bunjgun, quickly. Bondgun, even bandgun, quicker. And then kar, gur, gir, gur, those suffix makes it an adjective. So bunjgur is adjective, bunjgur something, and bondur something, and bandur something. Those kind of words is very difficult to translate to English because it's a difference is just how big is it? Oh, so what is in music? That.
Well, basically, it's a trill. Anyone knows trill? With 2 pitches, you're kind of alternating. But it's trill is trill in Western music. But in Mongolian, these ornaments, trill, there are 2 different kinds, 3 different kinds, 4 different kinds. But main difference between bunjugnuh and choklok, which is gonna be in next slide, is how you use your laryngeal part. So bunjugnuh is much more softer. So I'm not a singer. But bunjugnuh would be like striking your vocal cord, and we're gonna have an example from Mr. BATBOLD. So bunjugnuh. So in relation to that bunjugnuh that you just saw, is choklok is a little bit harsher, but there is no equivalent term in Western music. So, but yes, can we see? Chechini is using, so depending on what kind of body parts you use, it has different names too. Chechini choklok. Chechini is like your chest. So you're using actually sound coming out of your chest and using this trill. sounds really difficult. It is difficult. Yes. Che. So you can hear the pitch is going down and the timbre goes much deeper. That becomes just.
Okay, next technique is bolt or қолсық. Those two are similar, and boch, қолсық, both are very common word in the Mongolian language. So most musical terminologies, Ortindo terminologies, they're using like everyday word and using it in the musical background. So listening says boch is to come or go down, fall, to descend. Civil says the boch is the to move downward, olnas boch, to go down from the top. And then қолсық is the similar, қолқық and қолсық is the similar, to glide, slide, skate, but still қолсық in many meanings, not only just horizontally, it's vertically қолсық is coming down. So both of these words, common ideas from top to down. So what is in the music? It's
So yeah, I was having hard time to find the right word for these things. But bolt and boch is like, so it's contour. We call it contour. The way of shaping of the melodic line is contour. And this contour, descending contour, instead of going up, it's overall, the melodic line is going down, is bolt. And in contrast, gulsach would be like a very simple, we also have it in Western art music, like glissando, like oh, oh. That is pretty much gulsach. So here is the example.
two different of bolt, kind of. So one is just directly go down, and one is you go to different vowels, right? Is it? Mm-hmm. It's like a river with lots of stones and going like this way. That you know how to see how that difficult is. Okay, direct one. That was direct bolt. That was the one he explained, like the current of the river, right, going down. Yeah, so like as I said, okay, was it? Okay, next one is shorungha. So that one is so far we found that the only real Ortindo terminology. So other ones, most other ones, just everyday word, right? And we use as a musical background. But shorungha is the exact terminology for only Ortindo. But there is two different variations of explanation, etymology. And when Johnson, or famous Mongolian composer, published that this book, that Badra, another famous Mongolian scholar, interviewed Ortindo long song singer Dorjtaug, and Dorjtaug explained that is it shorungha or shorungha? Still don't know. People before, when I was young, many people said it's shorungha, but still now many people say it's shorungha. So both are possible. If it's shorungha with no long vowel, just shorungha, then the root it should be shor, shor. And that should be together with the same root of shorgh, to crawl in. So crawling in. If it's the shorungha, the root must be shore, to storm or to wind. So maybe you, our audience, can decide, like after BATBOLD sings, is it crawling in or creeping on, sneaking in some melody, or the winding?
In music, it's basically falsetto. If you guys are, if you are familiar with the falsetto, it's like falsetto really originated for the singers who are for the male singers has to go up high note, and then it's hard to make the sound, so it goes really like weaker sound. So it's a high note. It's really equivalent in that sense.
Two different shoronga there. The single and the double. Okay, the single shoronga. Okay, single shoronga it was.
Давхар шуранхаа гэдэг юм байна. Шуранхаа гэж байгаа тэн дээр яг шигшээд дахиад цаашаа явж.
Okay, now if the double shoronga is when you do shoronga, then you shik, which we'll explain it later. Next one, shik kind of, and then go back another shoronga to back to. That is double. Давхар shoronga. So he said shikshilt. If you do double shoronga, you have to go through shikshilt. So now it's the shikshik. Shikshik is the interesting word, and Lessing's dictionary said to sift, bolt, to winnow, fan, grains, and then qorillig or qoilrig in ancient Mongolian language it was qoiler. Qoilrig shikshihu, to flour, and then civil said it has two meanings. First meaning is to choose or to select, and the second meaning is to sift something with a winnowing fan. But I think it's the first meaning should be to sift of something with winnowing fan. That means the second meaning is to choose something or to select. And then it's like we do the, like this, right there. So this movement in music, what is that?
So when you go up to another pitch with when you go up, if you go directly with the dried sound, it's really hard to make it. So what Mongolian long song singers do is like, and then open up the resonance, this capacity, and then make a little bit of vibrato. So and then it goes up. So that's really shikshilt. So in that movement, it's like it's shaking a little bit shikshilt. Here is shikshilt.
Нэг өнгөн дээр шигшиг, дээшээ өнгө өгсөн шигшиг.
Pitch. Okay, there are two different of shikshilt. One is the shikshik or to winnow in the same pitch, or the second one is from one pitch go up to another pitch. There's another shikshik. So, okay, in the bass or in the same pitch, shikshik in the same pitch.
Vibrato.
Яг доо гэдэг яг доо өнгөн дээр шигшдэг чинь.
Okay, that was in the same pitch. Like example was do.
Одоо өнгө дээшээ
Going up, pitch up.
За удаанаас одоо чанараа үзүүлэхэд доми ч гэдэм үү.
Правильно. So you guess without him how we explain and you understand. Okay, Nogla is another very interesting word, Mongolian word. Nog. Those are another different kind of group of roots. And then this kind of root has some special pattern. If we add L, and then that makes the active verb. So nog, nogl, to bend or to fold. It's active. Someone is bending it. It is only with L. Hogl, hok, break down something, and then the difference between nog and hok, only difference is in and he. But what is the difference? The meaning is nogl is in the band is still together, but hogl is two separate parts. And then hagl, same to break like hogl, but it's the glass items. So when we're adding L, we are active. We did this. Be nogalsan, be hogalsan, be hagalsan. And then if you change it with little r, then it's passive. this thing is itself нугарсан. Тэр цаас өөрөө нугарсан. Хугарсан. Тэр мод өөрөө хугарсан itself. It's a passive. Then if you add che, нугч, хугч, хагч, repeatedly many times. So this repeated action that you see in the Mongolian language very important, right? Before I talked this bunjugnuh, the ganaguno is repeatedly. Now here too, nogchach che means like many times, many times. So this is.
So it's melisma. So it's another kind of ornament. Instead of doing just the straightforward voice, you put it like ornament, in music appoggiatura. It's like kind of like this ornaments.
Okay.
So he's gonna do the shik and then.
You know now, eh? Now it's from shik to nogla. Okay? Nogla, yeah. You did that.
Yeah.
Дахиад нөх. Хурцсан зүгөөс гэж одоо дурлж штэ яг сайн хахад дэлхий хамт дэлтэр үргэлж.
So simple bending note.
Okay. Иксэг шүлжих, икшиг томох. Икшиг is the have two meanings, vowel or melody also. So шүлжих, to braid, to intertwine. And then another similar terminology is ikshik pamukh. Pamukh is to twine, to strand. So it's very interesting how you strand, braid, or intertwine the vowels with what. So he will show that we can, in Ortindo, we can intertwine or braid vowels with consonant or masculine vowels with feminine vowels. Okay.
So this is really unique. Really only from long song is because different from humi, long song has a lyrics, and this lyric has to musicalize and vocalize, and this is one way how they vocalize this long song. So I translate it as a vowel weaving. So when they go, they adding additional vowels and they're mixing with the vowels. Similar concept in music, in Western art music or contemporary music, contemporary singing, is vowel modification. So even if it's vowels are different from speech vowel when we talk about singing vowel. So even if it's I say right? But it's not It becomes sometimes sometimes I made like adding O sound, U sound, E sound. So depending on the pitch, if you goes up to high up, like it's hard to say E sound. So you kind of open up your mouth, so like your capacity in here, and then becoming like it's not just E, it's E, right? So that's kind of vowel modification in Western art music and Western contemporary singing, but it's a little bit different in Mongolian long song, but adding more vowels and make more kind of flexible way of flow in long song. So, by the way, Mr. BATBOLD is the expert of this vowel weaving. Okay.
Нэг удаа би ихшиг томолтоор ихшиг сүлжиж хөөр байлгүй шүү. Дуулан тавхан дагаж харж байгаад хоёр дахь удаанд бүгдээрээ хамт дуулнаа.
Okay, so he will now intertwine the vowels and singing and show you Hurkun Halyung, the first time himself, and second time you will all follow, we will sing all together, okay? Second time. What's wrong?
За,
우근인 대신 들어라. 자.
ихшиг томолтоор ингээд бичсэн байгаа. Энэ ихшиг томолтыг бүгдээрээ дагаад эхний удаа яг дагуулад ингээд таана амьсгаа авч ийн. За, энэ хөөр байлгүй дотор шуурхараас бус бүгд байгаа. Үнэхээр шиг фэйжний цогтол эцсийн цогтол бүх
So, first time you listen carefully and then second time you follow, right? And also it's interesting this song because in this song, every terminology we just discussed is here, all except Shoronha. So this shik shik, bunjugnuh, everything is here. Wow, you all have potential, very good potential. In Mongolia, in the countryside, especially in the countryside, there's big natum and big nar in the parties, and they have to sing. And then when anyone start like this song, long song, everybody follows. So you see how it's everybody follows, everybody can. So now you, if you go to Mongolian countryside and then someone asks what to sing, then you ask, just sing Korkungalung, I can follow you. You just learned, right? Okay, next one. Uha and Khura. So, Civil says this is the interjection when shooting in archery or shaga. Shaga is ankle bone. And also interjection when attacking in a battle, Uha. And also interjection for expressing pleasure or agreeing.
Musically speaking, there's not much to talk about, but what's interesting about this ohe is as long song practice is developed in conservatory setting and it is trained in conservatory setting, long song singers picked up this ohe as a part of practice for their vocals. So there is, if you go to Swiss, this culture university or the music and dance college, you'll see ohe vocal practice. And as you can see from this chart, that is how Longsong singers developed it currently in Ulaanbaatar. This really becomes the practice among Longsong singers. So here is okay. That's good.
This oha is kind of exercise for the beginners of learning who learn Ortindo Longsong. And also in the oha, everything this bunjugnuch shik that we talked, right? Tsakoch, the tsejni tsakoch, this everything is included in the oha sound.
And then they practice usually in the piano and then goes up like a different pitches. So he started ohe, right? And then ohe, ohe, and then goes up and then practice that way.
Okay, now the hore, he will show you hore for one time, and then after that you will follow him 3 times. You will hore, okay?
자, 다음 군대 가서 시작하는 사연사의 분이 우승이로요. 호레! 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 So that is hooray, and then hore and oha. Interestingly, we are here in the Library of Congress, so I thought that I must include this interesting piece of history here. It's not here kept in Library of Congress, but it's in the archive, National Archive, founding under the files of founding fathers. President John Adams wrote the letter to Thomas Jefferson about that one, hore and oha, in January 26, 1813. See, John Adams wrote, I wonder that the hooray of Zingis, that hooray is hooray, Zingis is Genghis, of course. And then he says, Genghis, the Bonaparte of Asia, has never been urged as a proof that our Indians are descended from some of his soldiers or subjects, or from some of the nations who learned the art of war from him, when he scattered and drove so many of them, the Lord knows where. The Indian yell is said to be the most horrible sound that human voices can produce, and the most intimidating to an enemy. The same is said to Asiatic hooray. Neither nations nor wild beasts could resist it. So this is here in the civil explained interjection when attacking in a battle, right? So this hooray can be in the good reason, also when in the hunting and also in the war, that would be like very, very strong weapon. So they were talking about this. It's very interesting. It's just as one part, and actually John Adams, even in 3 letters, explained about hooray. Okay, next, okay, so the word is, in Mongolian language, is an easy word. It's galloping, with the horse galloping. So horse galloping, how is in the music? What is that?
Well, you can imagine horse galloping. So it starts really slow, talking about rhythm in here, and going slow and then getting faster and faster. So in music, I would say accelerando, you can see from the slide. Okay, so yeah.
Энэ мор алхуулж байгаа тэгээд огшуулаад цаашаа дахихгүй захтай баг. Уртын дооны тэмдлийг хурцгаад тааш.
So it's exactly the same meaning as we are riding horse when it's just walking, and then a little bit faster and little bit faster. At the end, it's like galloping, right? So it's exactly the same.
За жишээлбэл бас 도로 차게네게 근데 스디게 좀네함 살아단나 나리 더디디 기타 너가 받들만 그러져와 해마고 지금 사실은
So, okay, this one is very interesting. It's animal calls. So, we are all here Mongolists and we know it's like 5 important animals in Mongolia, right? Sheep, goat, cow, horse, camel. Those 5 animals are called in Mongolian different name. Those 5 are different. So, very interesting this kind of melodies for all of them. For sheep, it's tug, tug, tug. For goat, it's zozo. For cow, it's ooh. And for horse, gori. And then for camel, hus. And Batul will now show us all of them, right? Tug first. It's in different regions of Mongolia that the melody is a little bit different. That was the calling sheep or the zozo. Okay. Ooh. See, this Mongolian animals are very smart listeners. And then when he says "oh," no goat shows up. Just when only he says "zozo," the goat comes up. Yeah. So now he will call horses. Hori. Okay, and camel. He's calling camel. Who's?
So in field, I learned, especially for like camel hooves, you just learned that there are a lot of Ortindo, the long song melodic line attached. But for sheep like a togo and zuzu, it's really using for the lip practice and then for the mouth practice. That sense, and then these really animal calls became the basis of all those techniques you are looking at it. So people really developed from listening to this sound and then practice those sounds in their vocal cord and then developed those techniques. Kingo, I think.
Yeah, okay. So our performing artist, BATBOLD is not only just a long song singer, but he's also himself as a professor and a scholar. So here is the piece of about Gingo and Zengo, and then he explained himself about this. The children who ride race horses sing Gingo in expressing the high tones in Ortindo in the most delicate way. This gingo is a particular melody pushed out forcefully and with a shout. The expression of the gingo, tuned with a loud voice, excites the minds of animals and humans and encourages horses to gallop faster. For instance, as regards the gingo sung by children in horse races, if one looks at the tune, there are short parts of the Ortindo in this gingo. BATBOLD. You can show it.
So gingo is also different depending on different kinds of regions, and they have different melodic line developed. And in certain area, if you go, it says ummarze, a different name, and then they have chant beforehand of the singing, and that is related to Tibetan Buddhism. Nowadays, you know, we are having this all those protection, but in old days, horse race, as a lot of Mongolians know in here, it's a very dangerous race. Actually, it's very fast. So all we can do as a human is just to pray for it, right? So before that, it is a song actually also to pray to as a part of Tibetan Buddhism to the one of the Tamdrin, one of the Tibetan deities who had this horse head. To that deity, they were praying this song as a part of prayer, and then went out to the horse race. So that is king.
엄마 그래 왔을지 아잉 흐르와 후루 험밭 엄마를
Somebody else is finished, right? So this is pretty much the terms we have. The last one, gingo, is usually sung by jockeys. When we talk about jockeys, are very, very young age. We're talking about, what, 5, 6 years old? And that point, when they sung really beautiful gingo, and people know that person is gonna be a singer, and they were picked up by as a singer, and they would actually invite into feast. As kids, you cannot really invite into feast, but because they have a really good voice, it's gonna be a great singer. And in the feast, they need a great singer, and they kind of beginning to train them. And they're gonna, learn with their grandma, and then they will become great singers. So this whole techniques, sometimes it's really translatable to English, but a lot of concepts are really from the Mongolian culture, and it is really Mongolian. So as a music scholar who has complete in Western music training, had a hard time to understand to begin with and what it is, until I actually hang out with them and see how they live, how they listen to it, how they really process all those sound, the sense. Are we done here? I just heard alarm goes off, right? So until I listen to those sensibility in the field, that's what he means by that. That's what she means by that. So we are still in the process of how we explain it is. It may not be possible unless you really understand Mongolian music. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your attention.
And we have time for questions, and I'm sure there are many questions. So please feel free to ask your questions. I think we have time. And I have to say that because the library is preparing the webcast of the program, we ask that when you ask your questions, you are giving your permission to be filmed and appear in a later webcast of the program. So with that caveat, please ask your questions. Maybe, can you film the questions?
So in English, they're very, very, very
possible. Maybe the word hooray in English, maybe in French. Yeah, so I think that's the difference to maybe like the word tomorrow. Have you done research into maybe a word tomorrow? It's like the thing of the word very common.
Yeah. It's an interesting question. That so there's a long-standing theory that people in Mongolia that really want to connect that Russian word is hooray is ora. There's no consonant at the beginning. So in a linguistic theory, in Mongolian linguistics theory, most of the words started with vowel now. In the ancient Mongolian, Proto-Mongolian language, they were P. For example, Otong is Potong. Then P became F, Fotong. Then another F became H, H, Hotong. And then usually this H sound disappears. So, Hora, the H sound disappearing and becoming Ora is linguistically possible. We can't really say it's exact, but it's linguistically possible. But same hooray in H in English-speaking or in Western languages, we can connect. We can just say it's interesting and possible, and even the American founding fathers talked about like this. But this kind of etymology and the connection is very difficult to prove. And then it's the end.
If in a way, I'm not sure, but I think that the content comes from the military, and maybe in items and authorities, they what they're imagining their version or understanding of the being using the military purposes, and then they get lost in
I think that very to us, the singer, both, you did like strong hat, that was strong, right? You get like very strong hat. That's right.
Do you know the Tunjur? The monks just reading the money, they make the Tunjur. Tunjur. The Tunjur here is the Tunjur. За энэ бол нөгөө биш Түнжүр одоо намнар нөгөө майн татдаг штэ. Майн унших үедээ одоо энэ буулгах, үе сонгох одоо тэгээд шуран хайлах бүгдийг хийдэг. Тэрэн дээр нэг юм майны Түнжүр хийнэ гэж одоо би сайн шатахгүй Түнжүр гэж тийм байна. Тэрийг бас санахаараа Түнжүр хийнэ гэж. За ингэ бас цаг хоолоогоо цахиад ингэж бол. Аваас өрн бараг мэдэн шүү. Энэ сая дурдлын сургуулийн дахир те. Аваас өрн бараг мэднэ. Би бол мэдэхгүй байна. Түнжүр хийнэ гэж яаж хийдэг.
So the question was, is Ortindo long song could be connected with the Tunjur? And we all three of us never heard about Tunjur. Tunjur, and he explains that when monks repeat their sutras, chantings, they do Tunjur. So he can show what is Tunjur in lamas. And he was previously a lama himself.
Манай Түнжүр гэдэг энэ жаргасгийн зүрхэн тарныг айдантай унших одоо юм арга нэг л дээ. Тэгээ би бас сүүлийн арга 20 жил уншаагүй шүү. Тэгээ болохоор жаахан нэмэр болохыг тий. Омая
Also, Shashitrudo, something like that, that is related to religious content. But for this one, Mr. Rapport said it's only the vowel weaving is kind of looks like the characteristic of the Ortindo.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation and performance. So I never seen like this presentation in my life before. So linguistically, musically, and so it was wonderful. So I just interesting about the origin of the Gingo. So when maybe would be it start the Gingo. So if you research about Gingo, so can you tell about a little bit about origin of Gingo?
비행과 쇼팅 또 머리하고 돌지 진짜 머리에서 있다.
In my opinion, and but also in my opinion, the Gingo was originated at the same time that the horse culture, at the same time that the Mongolians started to domesticate horses. The Gori song, that Gori kind of melody was the calling to yourself the horses. And then this Gingo one is the kind of opposite. They make the horse run, the gallop fastly. So the kids sing that song and then make the horses faster gallop.
For SARUUL-ERDENE doctor, so can you explain about the origin of the word Gingo?
Yeah, there's a Gingo, and then the different way of the Zengo was, right? So two different versions, Gingo and Zengo. It's very difficult etymologically, it's very difficult to say. It's only one thing that we can say, it's an interjection. Interjections are like different. Interjections are those kind of words that from your soul, right? From your soul. When you're very happy, you shout something. When you're riding a horse, and then in order to make it go like choo, right? Choo. So it's what is chi and what is u. Etymologically, it's very difficult to explain. But one thing is very clear: those interjections in linguistically always originated in the very early period of the language. It's like as a kids when they start to talk, all the first is emotional words. The same thing in the Gingo and the Gingo. And another one, just small note. If you don't know the etymology of the word, that means that's very early. It's the modern one, we can very really say.
Thank you for a very illuminating keynote presentation. Learned a lot. And being raised as a Mongolian, of course, very proud of this long song culture. And happy to learn that UNESCO has registered it as the global heritage. So I have two questions. One is what is the state of research and studies of the long song in the world? So does it have a global appeal? And I know you are an amazing musicologist, and thank you for championing and studying the long singing in Mongolia. Are there any other researchers who are also studying? But my question is, I consider it as a classical art, on par with opera singing, on par with all the other classical forms of art, ballet and so forth. So is there a global appeal? Are there any other people just outside of Mongolia who want to learn long song? The art of long song is my first question. And the second question is more like, in my discussions with friends, people talk about how a singer can reach multiple octaves, right? And then as demonstrated by Mr. BATBOLD, he reached something that I could never imagine, a male voice reaching. So a typical male and female long song singers, how many octaves do they cover? And what is the highest number of octaves known to be covered by a long song singer?
I think that one can be answered. The first one can be answered by me. Maybe the second one can be answered by Mr. Rapport here. So somehow it is very appealing genre, and a lot of people, when they listen to the long song, they want to study and goes to Mongolia and start and never finish. Somehow it's a very hard genre. Somehow I destined to study long song, and so I spent a lot of time outside, countryside with the herders and singers. That's why I started understanding. It takes really a lot of time to understand what it is. So I know some of the researcher doing in Inner Mongolia a lot, and some in English scholarship. We had a Carol Pack in England who not mainly focused on long song, but did a lot of Mongolian music, but had a lot of research on long song as well. And other than that, now a lot of younger generation started looking into it, and some of the Mongolian descendants studying outside of Mongolia started looking into it, and that I know. But it has been, even for the Mongolians, for younger generations, I think they're more interested in hip hop than long song. So, and to understand long song, and it's not just you go in and understand the techniques. You have to go in, and really you have to see how they sing in the context. So maybe because the difficulty of the researcher, it hasn't been really out a lot. So that is the situation, predicament of long song research scholarship right now. The second one was about the range of the vocal singers. So, and that wide range is one of the characteristics of this long song. And recently, I think, right. So usually like 2 octaves, and the male singer goes down, really like a lower voice to a little bit higher, and woman singers can go from here to very high. But another characteristic within that high range, they goes up and down really quickly as well. So they have enough breath, they have enough vocal cord that they can do, which is really interesting. But recently, one of the famous long song singers, Chimetse, sung 3 octaves by the actually long song that was composed by Jansen. So the composer Jansen Norup, Mr. Jansen Norup, actually made that 3 octaves, and she just made it. So that's what I know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll have time to chat further when we're looking at the display in the Asian reading room. But first, I have a very short introduction to the Mongolian collection here. Many of you are already familiar with the collection, so I will I'll just offer a few slides to introduce it to you, and then we'll be going over to the Asian reading room to see the display itself. Our current Mongolian acquisitions began in 1992, but the first Mongolian books came to the Library of Congress in the 1890s. They were gifts from American diplomat William Rockhill, and this is actually the first Mongolian book to arrive at the Library of Congress, the Sutra of the Great Liberation. It's a very beautiful illustrated manuscript. Our total statistics are about 17,000 items, which includes 12,000 monographs, many serial titles, microfiche, etc. And books about Mongolia are in the general collections or in one of these special collections. For example, books about Mongolian music are in the recorded sound division primarily, and CDs, media are also kept there. So this year I prepared, and SARUUL helped me with a display in the Asian reading room. This is the title I selected Songs of the Steppes, and you'll see many books in the display on long song, other musical traditions, art, culture, and archaeology. And I included one rare book. It is the 18th century Zylograph biography of Milarepa, he was an 11th century Tibetan yogi, whose songs are actually part of Mongolian Buddhist plays, and I believe are sung in rituals, Buddhist rituals in Mongolia. So we will be going to the Asian reading room to see the display, but first enjoy some refreshments. We should leave the room around 4 o'clock. We can meet at the back door, and I'll help you walk over to the Asian reading room if you don't know where it is. Thank you very much.